Ladies and gentlemen, Keith Schillen here, and I'm back with another MMATakeover.com special edition. Today's guest is a fighter with a 13-3 MMA record and is on a 7-fight winning streak, including a 2-0 start in the UFC with wins over Kyle Noke and James Mutasari. He's fighting this Saturday at UFC Fight Night 104 against Nico Price in Houston, Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, we got Alex Morono. Alex, how are you?
Man, I'm doing great. I finished my last hard training session yesterday, and this has been one of the most successful fight camps I've ever had. I'm very excited to fight.
Really? So, how much of it is a relief, you said, is the last one? I'm sure, like, I've heard a lot of fighters say it's actually more of a relief just to get the training camp over than the actual fight itself.
Yeah, so this has been a marathon training session. So I was supposed to fight James Mutasari in October, so I started training for that in August, and then that got canceled and rescheduled to December. So that was like a 4.5-month-long training camp, and then I picked this fight up like less than a week after that. So it's been almost 6 months of training, and I do not cut any corners in my training camps. Every camp is 100% serious, and Saturdays at my gym, a lot of different like fighters and grapplers kind of meet up, and we have a really tough training session. So Saturday's like a big symbol each week, you know, showing that I've completed another week and I'm that much closer to the fight. And then the last Saturday is always like extra kind of special in terms of like the session we hit.
Yep.
And I finished that up. I have 0 injuries going into this fight, and I could not have trained any harder if I wanted to. So everything's ready. I'm ready to go out there and perform.
All right, so let's just back up a little bit. You have a very interesting story how you got into mixed martial arts. Just tell everyone who doesn't know at home how you got into mixed martial arts.
Man, yeah, so I wasn't a particular athlete when I was younger. I just really enjoyed watching, you know, the old Pride fights. I watched Fedor a lot when he was, you know, when his reign was going strong. I watched a lot of UFC. I remember the first time I actually sat down and watched like a fight and hadn't missed one since was Chuck Liddell versus Randy Couture. I've watched ever since then, and then you know, I was a heavier kid, and I ended up getting a boxing gym like membership, and I ended up losing a lot of weight. And after about 6 months of training, almost every day I took a kickboxing match as an amateur, and won with the head kick, and then I've trained every single day since, and I've fought, you know, over 30 times. Now this is all I do every day, all day.
Now you said you lost a little bit of weight. Now it was a lot more than a little bit of weight, correct?
Yeah, so I was 16 or 17 when I started, and I lost upwards of 60 pounds, and man, and just never went back. It's been awesome. It's been it's been 10 years since that happened.
Wow, that's a great story. I mean, you don't hear a lot of that. No, Joe Riggs is another guy that has a very similar story to that. That he was a kid that just needed to lose weight, and then he got into a long MMA career. Now, how'd you get the nickname the Great White?
So two reasons. It's funny, nicknames you can't choose.
That's right.
That's just not the way to do them. So someone has to give it to you. And man, this was actually on a Saturday hard sparring a few years ago. One of my boxing training partners, I was getting rotated on. I had a fight coming up, and I was in really good shape. And it was funny. All the fresh guys were getting tired, and I was staying strong. And then instead of, you know, just like doing well in surviving the rounds, I just kept pushing the pace, and every time I fight, it's super aggressive. So I got the name primarily from having like a really aggressive style, but also if you've seen me, I'm like one of a few white guys, and I'm super pasty. And that's just funny. Next to all my training partners, I'm like a shining light. So it's kind of like a double meaning there.
I'm the same way myself. I'm pretty pasty myself. Yeah, Brian Stan actually pointed that out in your fight against Jay Mutasari. He said, hey, he's gonna have to get a tan because when he kicks him, you got to see every mark that lands. It looks worse for you. So did you hit the training? Did you hit the tanning booth at all for this fight?
No, I never ever will.
All right, so you were talking about your training camp. Who are some of the guys you're training with, and who are the coaches?
Yeah, so I had gone to Elevation Fight Team to go see what like one of those major camps was like, and man, it was awesome. I got to train with Brandon Thatch and Neil Magny, and a few other guys, and man, it was awesome. The quality was really good, but like being away from home and like, you know, not having a car or like a really easy way to cook and stuff, the convenience factor wasn't as there. So I had trained at home in Houston for this one, and I actually visit 4 different gyms all around town. I drive all around the city, and I just find the best guys I can train with.
Okay,
and,
no,
I'm
sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Well, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, like, I'm assuming one is strictly a jiu-jitsu gym, another one's a boxing gym. There's probably one that mixes both, something like that. A lot of times you hear fighters say that.
Yeah, so I'll just give you a rundown of the gyms. One of them is so my home gym is at Gracie Barra, the Woodlands. I've been there since I was a white belt. I'm the black belt now. I run the classes, run the MMA program, and then we have my striking coach is out of there, a guy named Matt Wald. Again, he and I have been working together maybe 8 years. He's got a lot of kickboxing experience, the best pad holder I could ever ask for. We work almost every day together. He's been cornering me forever. And so I get all my technical striking work there. My MMA coach is also there. A guy named Gerardo taught me just like to embrace the grind and how to get in the mix in MMA. And a lot of guys go to our gym to train for MMA work, and there's a lot of really good jiu-jitsu there. And then I go downtown to a gym called Gracie Barra West Chase, one of the nicest facilities you ever see. And they have a serious competition grappling team and a really good strike coach, a guy named Cyrus Washington, over 100 Thai fights. Dude's really good. So I get some good stand-up sparring there with their guys, and then some really good competition jiu-jitsu there. And there's another gym, 4 Ounce Fight Club. Derek Black Beast Lewis trains out of there. And that's where I get a lot of sparring in. They got some really big welterweights, and that's a grind of a training session. That's every Friday. And then I also go to another gym called Houston Muay Thai, and Valentina Shevchenko trains out of there. Lewis also trains out of there, and they got some really good striking. So not lacking anywhere in terms of training sessions or training partners. And if you're willing to make your schedule work and willing to travel, Houston's a hotbed for awesome martial arts training.
Now, you must have been pretty excited seeing how Valentina did last night.
Yeah, man, that was awesome. I expected her to counter punch her to hell, but she ended up submitting her. That was awesome.
Yeah, I think that was everyone. We do this thing. We pick a fighter of the week, based on something they accomplished that week. And we have a really hard debate this week. We've been debating out if it should be Valentina or if it should be Jorge Masvidal, who was a fight just previous. So anybody's at home, check out. You'll find out sometime this week who we finally decided on doing. But back focusing on you. You got called to fight Kyle Noke on only 11 days' notice. Now, Kyle Noke is a long-time veteran of the sport. He's accomplished a lot. He's been in the UFC a very long time. I mean, he just recently announced his retirement. Before that, this is going back over a year now. How did the call originally come in? And was it something you were expecting? Because, I mean, obviously you had a lot of success in the Legacy Fighting Championship.
No, it was a total surprise, and thankfully. So from November 2014 to January 2015 or 16, I'm sorry, that's about 13, 14 months. I had like 7 or 8 pro fights, 1 boxing match, a kickboxing match, 2 pro jiu-jitsu matches, and then a bunch of MMA fights. So I was in excellent shape. My weight was always low. So taking that fight short notice was really easy. And I showed up to the gym one evening, and my good friend, he's one of my assistant coaches, one of my pro MMA guys, he was working the front desk. He was like, dude, the UFC called. I gave him your number. He said they'll call back. And I thought he was just kidding around. But like 20 minutes later, I was teaching a boxing class, and I left my phone around just in case I got the call. And sure enough, Joe Silva had called. And he was like, hey, this is Joe Silva. His house. I was like, yes. He's like, I have a fight for you. And I was like, I'll take it. And I didn't even, I accepted the fight. He could have said anyone, any weight class.
It could have been anybody. It could have been Stipe Miocic at heavyweight. You were taking whoever it was.
I would have taken it, and I would have had the mindset to win. So yeah, he calls. I accept the fight, and I get the details, and I'm like, and he tells me the opponent. He says it's Kyle Noke, and I was like, oh, dang, all right. I mean, I was in for sure, but that was his 10th UFC fight. I didn't have to watch any tape on him because I had seen him fight so many times. It was such a surreal moment, and sure enough, man, I took that fight, and I went in there to win, and nothing else. And man, I know it was a close fight, but in terms of damage done, he only landed like 1 punch to my face. He landed a bunch of body kicks that didn't do any damage. Yeah. And man, I broke his nose with the right hand. I had that arm bar that I still can't believe he survived through. To me, the fight was pretty clear cut in terms of damage done. And man, it was all just super hard training from then on.
Sure.
Man, I had a torn ACL for a couple of years. And I did get that fixed after that fight. That was a big relief.
Well, one thing I always like to do is I always like to go back at fights, and and watch it. Every time there's a close decision, I like to watch it a second time, because a lot of times when you watch it with no one else around, you might score it differently. And I also do that preparation for interviews, if I can try to, believe it or not, I can't remember every detail of every fight. So I went back and looked at your fight, and it is an extremely close fight. It is as close as it comes. I can understand how some people might score it for him, some people score it for you. To me, the first round, you're right. You busted his nose up, and I thought it was more of his volume versus your overall damage. So I gave that round to you. Second round, I think you'd agree with us. He wins the second round. He got a takedown on you. He landed some elbows, and the third round was really back and forth. It looked like he was going to steal the fight at the very end when he took you down, but then you landed that armbar that was really close. And I actually think that's gave you the win, the armbar at the end. Do you believe that was the case, or do you think? Let me change that. Were you confident that you were going to get that decision when the fight was over?
No, not at all. My coach had told me he thought I had taken it. I wasn't sure, man. I was tired, and I just didn't know. And once the first judge had read a scorecard at 29-28 for myself, I was like, oh, hey, maybe I did. And the second one said 30-27 no. And that I didn't agree with, because I definitely thought I had won the third round, because I almost finished, and I had done a lot more damage physically, and so no, getting that was a surprise, and it was something I'm very happy happened, but that it's also out of our hands. Noke and I showed up, we fought our asses off, and then the rest is up to the judges, so we just kind of got to accept what happens. But I am glad I got that decision, and I would have been very bummed if it went the other way.
Sure.
Like, looking at us after the fight, man, he was all in black eyes, a broken nose, almost got finished with an armbar, and I was never in any danger in that fight.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and you were considered the better grappler of Noke and Moustasari, but you didn't attempt to take either one of the fighters to the ground. You actually came out, you were pushing the pace, you came out slugging against both guys. You landed some heavy leather, you landed some spinning back punches, spinning back kicks. Was the game plan to stand with both these guys, or was it just kind of how the flow of the fight happened?
So yeah, it's a surprise now. If you watch any one of my fights ever, I try to stand and land big shots, because I know my striking's good. I have a very personal understanding of the mixed martial arts game, and it's not like boxing or kickboxing. Guys don't stand in range and exchange. With the takedowns and the small gloves, the range is a little longer, so guys generally can't throw combos longer than like 3 shots. And honestly, like 3 punches at maximum can be easy to dodge. So I really try to work on good evasive movement and counter striking, and I throw a lot of power into the counter strikes. And plus, doing these super long fight camps, I owe it to myself to get a fight in. You know what I mean? So I really like to exchange punches and go for the knockout. And wrestling is very fatiguing. It can be kind of boring. A perfect fight for me is essentially like a boxing or kickboxing match with the little gloves on. So no, my game plan in this fight is the same. I'm going to try to keep it standing and just look for my finishing shot. And I know Nico likes to wrestle. He likes to stand and strike until he gets hit. So it's a pretty similar game plan to my Sheldon Westcott fight. I expected to grind it out a lot more with Westcott, and hopefully Price will stand and trade with me a little more. But either way, man, I always joke around. I say I got my black belt in jiu-jitsu, so I don't have to grapple in MMA fights. But man, I've trained with some of the best black belts in town. My jiu-jitsu's been peaking like tremendously, and I could absolutely see myself catching a submission.
Okay, now I'm going to jump ahead. Then you mentioned Nico Price. We recently had Nico on an interview. We're very fond of Nico just because we were the first website to get an interview with him before he made his USA debut. So we're very fond of him. He's actually one of our highest views. So you mentioned that you're scheduled against Sheldon Westcott, who's known for his wrestling and a little bit of striking. Nico is a little more balance. He just kicks really well. How much? I know you didn't really get much time to make adjustment because the news just came out that Nico Price was replacing him. What changes have you had to make in camp from going from Westcott to Price?
So the only real difference was Westcott was a southpaw, who it's oddly enough I actually feel more comfortable fighting southpaws, and Nico is an orthodox fighter, and Nico is a little more well-rounded. And before we start talking about the fight, one thing, man, I've never really liked my opponents, because you got to fight them. But I do respect Nico more than anyone else because he took this fight.
Sure.
I had a lot invested into this fight camp. It's at a hometown, so I had an insane amount of tickets bought. Like, I have family flying in from New York. I got a bunch of T-shirts made. Like, there was, other than the super hard fight camp, there was a lot invested. And Nico did not have to take this fight, and he did. And for that, I am super grateful and thankful, and he's earned my respect. So I cannot wait to go put on an awesome war of a fight with him. But the game plan really didn't change. I still expect to fight in the clinch quite a bit, and it is kind of cool. It actually it makes me a little happier in terms of like the fight layout, because he will stand and trade, and he's got a real long reach. And man, he's pretty aggressive and wild. So I think this is like the perfect recipe for a fight of the night. And now it's the same concept. Keep the range, throw my strikes, and then wrestle when we get close. So
now, when this match got put together, did they offer you, like, was this the only guy that was offered to you, or were they like, hey, you could fight A, B, C, and you pick Nico, or was it just, hey, we got Nico Price, yes or no?
No, it was like slim pickings. So I found out on a Tuesday that Wes got pulled out. Man, I hate getting calls from my manager like within a month of the fight, because I'm always expecting bad news. And sure enough, I got some bad news. And I was telling him, I was like, you deal with a lot of fighters, you deal with this a lot. What's the turnaround time for getting a new name? And he's like, we may have something today. And that wasn't the case. Tuesday passed, Wednesday passed, Thursday passed, Friday passed, and then going into the next week, I was really, really hoping for something, keeping my fingers crossed. And sure enough, that next Monday night, I had two guys. I had two potential guys. One of them couldn't make weight, so we were waiting on Nico's answer. And sure enough, I got word the next morning he took the fight.
Sure.
That was awesome.
Who was the other guy?
No, a guy named Bilal Muhammad.
Oh yeah.
But they said they said making weight would have been a
he just fought Vicente Lucoy at UC 205. He's remember the name Bilal. Remember the name Muhammad. So we always have fun with that one.
And I really appreciate these guys considering it. And then, man, I really, really am thankful Nico is a freaking warrior and took the fight. Man, that's awesome.
Now, one thing when we do interviews with people, we like to look at their film, and we had Nico before the Brandon Thatch fight, which he also took on short notice in his UFC debut. There's not a lot of film on Nico because he's undefeated. He puts guys out pretty fast. Have you been able to see a lot of film on him?
Yeah, so I actually watched his Thatch fight. I've always been a huge fan of Brandon Thatch. He's just got such good striking, and I was thinking if he was going to lose, it'd be by sub. But yeah, the second I found out I was fighting Nico, for sure, myself, my teammates, all my coaches, we scoured the internet, and there's a lot of his fights on YouTube, a lot of his old fights. Not all of them, but more than half of them. So I've watched more than enough tape. And I'm a man of strategy, man. I love this sport in and out. I do everything in my power to learn and see what my opponents do. And I watched more tape on them than I needed to, and really know what to expect in terms of his style. And if anything, I learned he likes to throw down. So I'm looking forward to a battle of a fight. I've never really had like a super ground out war. So hopefully I'll get one of those. That'd be great.
So now I thought the Montessori fight was a pretty good war until about, I think, midway through the second. You hurt him really bad and really took over from that point on. But you mentioned just you like to do strategy. You've also mentioned that you really like to stand and bang on the feet. One question I want to ask you is in your last fight, Brian Stann mentioned that you said to him that you didn't feel confident that you could take down Montessori and hold him down. Do you feel confident? Obviously, I don't want you to give away your game plan, but do you feel confident you could take Nico down?
Yeah, I remember Stan saying that. I think he may have misinterpreted what I said. I didn't say my wrestling wasn't good enough to do it. I think I told him I didn't want to do it. And because, man, as little as I do wrestling fights, I do so much grappling and wrestling and training, an equal amount that I do of striking, maybe more, because when I do MMA work, we throw in our takedowns. But no, I definitely believe I can take down, any of these guys. I'll be fighting, but I don't see myself going for it unless we clinch up and something is left open. But if anyone watches my fights, that's why I'm not too scared to really talk about it. I just try to keep range and land big punches, but every single fight we end up clinching up and grappling. So it's just just going to have to kind of adapt as the fight happens.
Do you
but
know
no, if a takedown's there, I'll most definitely go for it.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Do you know if Brian Stann is calling your fight again this weekend? I'm not really
sure.
If
I'm not mistaken, it'll be Brian Stann and John Anik, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, so what you do when you see, I know they talk to you guys before the fight, try to get some information. When you see him, shoot him for a takedown and take him down, and then say, "How's my wrestling now?"
Yeah.
But
Again, man, I think in all my fights I've gone for maybe 3 takedowns. So I don't know if that'll happen this time.
well, you mentioned that he might have misinterpreted. What we in the media, we like to basically misinterpret you on purpose to kind of get whatever sells most. So when this interview comes out, I'm gonna put that you have an issue with Brian Stann and you want to fight him. That's gonna be the headline of this interview.
Oh no, man! I love Brian Stann. He's like a perfect American role model.
Yeah. All right. So going back to Nico, I want to talk about the mental aspect of the game. In Nico's last fight, he fought Brandon Thatch, and he got right in Brandon Thatch's face in the weigh-ins. Refused to shake his hand twice. Now I like Nico. We like Nico. He's a very nice guy in interviews. It seemed you've said nothing but good things about him so far. It seemed to me like he was just trying to play some head games, showing in his debut, I'm confident, I'm not scared of a guy who's actually headlined a UFC card. Are you prepared for this mental aspect that Nico might get in your face? And if so, are you willing to get back in his face? Are you going to play those mental games too, or no?
Oh man, absolutely. I love the MMA game through and through, man. There's absolutely nothing that can happen that will change my mindset when I fight. And man, I live for these fights, and like the perfect end would be to die in battle. So no, I hope he brings it in. That add a fun element, and that would make me fight even harder. So no, I'm not too sure what to expect. I was gonna be thankful that he took the fight, but if he tries to make it ugly beforehand, dude, I'll match it. That would actually be kind of fun. I've never had anyone do that before.
Okay. So we could see a pretty intense stare down depending on if Nico initiates it at the weigh-ins.
Oh, sure, man. I always get in my guy's face, too. I like to look into their soul through their eyes. I like to let them know that I am ready to die in that octagon. So I'm sure I'll see the same thing back from him.
Okay.
But I'm looking forward to that.
So speaking of the weigh-ins, if you don't mind me asking, you're 5 days away from making weight. What's your current weight?
So after training on Saturday, I was 179. So 8 pounds out. Not bad at all, and plus I have a very strict and consistent fight week diet, so I'll probably only have to sweat out 5 or 6 pounds, which will be an easy weight cut. Anytime I do fights back to back, the second or third weight cut's always very easy to do.
Is that how much?
Plus I'm at home.
I'm sorry. Is that how much you normally take off the last day of the fight?
Yeah, so when I fought Muntasri, I woke up the morning of weigh-ins at 178, so I had to sweat out 7 pounds, which is not an issue whatsoever, man. I'm one of those guys at the gym who leaves a puddle under me when I'm done training. So no, that's not a big cut at all, and I'm already leaner than I was for that fight.
Sure.
So my guess is when I wake up morning of weigh-ins around probably 7:30 a.m., I'll have to lose either 5 or 6 pounds, of which there's a 24-hour fitness right near my house. I'll go sweat it out and then go up to the weigh-ins.
So that you live in Houston, correct?
I do, yes.
How far is Arena from your house?
So I live on the north side in a smaller town called the Woodlands. It's maybe 45, 50 minutes south from my place, but the weigh-ins, the official weigh-ins will be at the hotel where all the fighters stay, and that's maybe 20 minutes from my house.
Oh, wow. So how many of your friends and family are going to the fight?
Dude, got maybe 200, 300 people I know.
And I'm sure a bunch of people have been calling you, asking for tickets, trying to get free tickets from you. How many people have you had to say no to?
I have fought locally so many times that anyone who wants to go kind of knows what to do. I got some pretty cool shirts made, and then I make posts regularly telling them where to get tickets. So I've actually had nobody ask for anything. I did give my orthopedic surgeon some free tickets because he fixed my knee, and he also helps my family out a lot with any medical needs. But other than that, man, it's been really easy. It's been a really fun local fight to promote.
Oh, well, because usually you hear fighters say, "Oh, how many people have been asking for tickets? The phone keeps blowing up, trying to get free tickets." So let me ask you this question: you're fighting at home. Do you believe that's an advantage fighting at home because you could have the home crowd cheering for you, or do you think there's gonna be added pressure to put on a good performance in front of your fans?
No, it's definitely a plus. for two reasons. One is the convenience of not having to travel while cutting weight. I'll have my gym to train at. And two, fighting for my hometown, there's an electric energy in the arena, and that is very empowering. So that I feel like that's going to give me, an extra motivation to fight harder and dig deep and do even better. So now I'm very excited for that. I never thought I'd be able to fight locally again in the UFC, and it happened early on. So this is a dream come true. I'm going to make the most out of this fight.
So one thing we always like to do is we always like to have the fighters predict the main event. So we have Dennis Bermudez in the main event going against the return of the Korean Zombie, Chan Sung Jung. Who do you got in that fight?
Man, I have been a huge Korean Zombie fan. I thought he was going to beat Aldo before he dislocated his shoulder.
Wow.
I have a prediction that Chan Sung Jung's gonna rock Bermudez and then take him down and submit him.
Oh wow! You'll see my official predictions sometime on the website. It'll be posted this Saturday. So let's go to your fight. What's your prediction for your fight? How's the fight end?
Best case scenario, win by knockout. That's what I'm going to be gunning for the whole time. Most realistic scenario, I believe, is I'm going to catch him with a submission while we're transitioning to wrestling, and then so that's what I think will happen. What I want to happen is a knockout. What I think will happen is a submission.
Okay, so everyone listening at home who likes to gamble, make sure you parlay Alex and the Korean Zombie. Parlay them together. According to Alex, it's gonna be a nice payday. So you win this fight. You move. So we'll play matchmaker for a second. You win this fight. You move to 3-0 in the UFC, which is obviously a great start to your UFC career. Who would you want to fight next? Would it be Sheldon Westcott, because you've been training to fight him, or do you have someone else in mind?
There are so many guys I'd like to fight, and I also want to make sure to delicately move my way up the ranks and not take any foolish matchups and kind of try to keep my UFC record undefeated. So Westcott would be a great match. I'd love to fight Mickey Gall, but I don't think they'll give me that fight. I think they're just trying to protect him. Also, I think a good step up in competition, and I don't know why I'm so hooked on this matchup, but the guy who just beat Kyle Noak, Omar Akhmedov, he's a big dude. He got good wrestling.
Sure.
I would like to test myself with that fight. So I think moving up, with a victory, I get to renegotiate my contract, and then moving on to the next level, more like an intermediate UFC level, would be Akhmedov. So that's what I'll look for now.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a good fighter. One thing we always like to say is if you want to fight, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. You want to fight, the best way to do it is say it right in the octagon right afterwards. When a guy calls out someone, usually they get it. One guy I'm starting something new where anytime someone doesn't specifically pick a fighter, which you actually did pick some fighters, is I like to play matchmaker. I write this article right after every show. I'll have my article coming out today for the guys who fought last night. I like to say, hey, this is who I think you should fight next. This is who you should call out. So we're starting it today. The guy that I thought you'd be 3-0, I think would be, like you were talking about, a step up in competition, was a guy that's actually headlined UFC cards. I think Patrick O'Tay would be a perfect opponent for you. How would you feel about that?
Man, I've actually talked about that. After I know Grayson Cerrone is a freaking monster, but Cote's good. I remember watching him fight back in the day, but it doesn't look like he's evolved too much. He is an excellent fighter. I would absolutely take that fight.
So yeah, feel free when you win tomorrow to call out. Not tomorrow. This weekend that you call out Patrick Cote.
That'll be something to think about.
All right, so I'm gonna let you get out of here. The last question I have for you is, Alex, have you submitted to the takeover?
This is Alex Serrano. I have submitted to the takeover.
Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you tune in this Saturday. See Alex as he fights Nico Price. We do this thing every week where we make our predictions. I'm actually going to give you a sneak peek of my predictions. I'm not going to pick a winner between Alex and Nico. I like both guys. I just interviewed both guys. But I'm going to tell you that we always pick a fight of the night. This is the fight that I think is going to be the fight of the night. Both guys fight at an extremely high pace. Both guys like to slug it on their feet. Both have a very slick jiu-jitsu game. So I really can't wait to see this fight. I really think it's going to be a great fight for the fans. Alex, we thank you for coming in. We thank you for spending the time and talking to us. We wish you luck. We welcome you to the MMA Takeover family.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much, man. It's a lot of fun.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's another MMA Takeover Special Edition interview. We thank you for listening. To continue to receive the best MMA coverage around, head over to our site, themmmatakeover.com. That's themmatakeover.com. You can also like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter or Instagram, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks again.